Alright, so I was watching a video the other day of a pretty well-known YouTuber, and YouTuber who I typically watch his videos, and it's a name that you guys would all know if I said it. I'm not going to blast his name out there or anything, but he was doing a rifle review, and it was a rifle that I was not particularly super interested in, but I was interested in seeing how it shot. So, as I'm watching him do his review, he goes to the part where he's shooting groups with the rifle at 100 yards. And he had a couple of things going on. One is he seemed to be getting two separate groups. So the same 5-shot group was grouping in two separate spots. And then on top of that, it just wasn't getting as tight a groups as he had thought this particular rifle would get. As I'm watching him shoot these groups, I noticed a couple of things. I'm typically, when I see people shoot groups, I just kind of pay attention out of habit. And I noticed that during these groups, he was doing some of the time he was loading the bipod. He was building a solid position, doing everything right, and then loading the bipod. And those particular shots seemed to be going in a different spot than the shots where he was kind of in a hurry and not loading the bipod. So by him doing that, and I've seen other people do this in the past, it made me kind of think about that and want to do this video. So today I want to do a video demonstrating the difference between what happens if you load the bipod properly and if you don't load the bipod properly. Because loading the bipod does a couple of things. One is you're putting forward pressure on that bipod. So you're digging your bipod legs in, or you're putting it up against something like this. And as you push forward with your shoulder, or with your whole body rather, it is putting forward pressure on that rifle and putting it tighter to your shoulder. So when the rifle recoils, it has less distance to travel because it's tighter against your shoulder. And that distance, and not only is it going to have less distance to travel, but because you're putting that forward pressure and the bipod is already leaning forward, it's going to allow that rifle to recoil in the way that you want it to most of the time. It's going to recoil. It's going to be much more likely to recoil in a straight back fashion, so forward and back, rather than jump up. If you don't load the bipod, if you just throw the rifle down, do everything right, build a good position, but then you don't load the bipod, and especially in a rifle that has more recoil, some of the times you'll notice that the rifle, instead of recoiling straight back, first off, if you don't load the bipod, the rifle is going to have a lot more felt recoil. And then secondly, some of the time that recoil won't be in the direction you want it to be. It won't be forward and back. Sometimes the rifle will have a tendency to jump up. Now that's obviously exaggerated here, but you'll have a lot more muzzle rise, which is not what you particularly want. You want the rifle, as we've talked about many times before, to recoil in a completely horizontal plane. So I wanted to do this video, and I wanted to demonstrate it with this 308 here. First off, it's a rifle that I haven't done a whole lot of videos with yet. I've been having a lot of fun with it. I've done a couple of videos you guys may have seen, a couple of 1,400, almost 1,500 yard shots, one of them on a can of spray paint. And not on top of that, it's a short barreled 308, so it's going to have more felt recoil than like my 6 Creedmoor or something like that. And beyond that, I don't have a muzzle brake on it. I just have this three-prong flash hider. So all that makes for a rifle that has a lot more recoil than some of the other rifles that I could use for this. So that's why we're using this. So here you go. This is demonstrating recoil, or demonstrating the difference between loading a bipod and not loading a bipod. So check it out. We are not going to load the bipod. As a matter of fact, should be doing almost the opposite. Alright, now we're going to go to that spot next to it. I didn't do anything. All those broke cleanly. Now we're going to put some load on the bipod here. There we go. Get her to dig in a little bit. Okay. So that is loading the bipod versus not loading the bipod. Alright, so this group here, using no load on the bipod. Now, it's as you can see, this group, both of these groups were shot with the same exact point of aim. Dead center of these dots were my point of aim for both groups. Now, this one was about an inch high, or 3/4 of an inch high. And as you can see, the bullets just went where they wanted to go because I didn't put any load on the bipod to control the recoil forward and back. This group over here, while not overly impressive, but it's what I expected. I'm not disappointed in it at all. It's about what I expected with this particular load in that rifle. But as you can see, much more consistent, all to the same spot on the target, and about a 1/2 inch low of center of point of aim. So two completely different outcomes just by loading the bipod. All right, so there you have it. So there is your difference. So obviously the group that we shot when we did not load the bipod, the first group, was, first off, it was all over the place. Letting the rifle do what it wants to do as far as recoil goes makes it so that you have no real follow through, and the rifle is going to just recoil however it decides to recoil, and your shots are not going to group consistently. Beyond that, if you notice, the group that we shot, when I did not load the bipod, tended to be about 3/4 of an inch or so high of the actual point of aim. And like I said, there's a good reason for that, because you tend to have more muzzle rise when you don't load the bipod. If you're not loading the bipod or putting forward pressure on that rifle so that it wants to recoil in that horizontal plane, then the rifle can only do what it can do, and that is come up, so have a lot more muzzle rise. So now if the group that we shot here, where we loaded the bipod, I put plenty of load on the bipod, I shot it like I typically would, doing all the fundamentals right. Both these groups were shot doing everything right. The only difference is the one I didn't actually load the bipod like I typically would. The group that we shot loading the bipod was a decent group. Now this rifle, it's a gas gun. This load, it's about what I expected. It's about a 1/2 minute load, and that's about what we got. So we got a .544 inch group here with the group that we shot loading the bipod. So not a bad group. It's only 3 shots, obviously, but that's typically what I expect from this particular load and this particular rifle. Definitely a respectable group. The group where we didn't load the bipod, first off, obviously it's over a 1/2 inch higher than our particular point of aim, but beyond that, it's a 2-inch group. So this thing grouped at 2.001 inch. So definitely not something that I'm going to be happy with. And that's what I was seeing in that video that I was watching from the YouTuber who was loading his bipod and then not loading his bipod. So I just wanted to do this little quick demonstration to show you guys the difference between something as small as just making sure you load your bipod every time can have a drastic difference in your group size. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out.